I would say to grieve out loud.
Mm.
To grieve out loud, because grieving out loud allows others to show you that compassion that you need so you don't feel alone.
Hi, I'm Dr. Ebony Stone, and this is the Black Woman in the Corner Office. Hello, 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 and welcome to the Black Woman in the Corner Office podcast. I am your host, Dr. Ebony Stone, the author of The Power of the Pause. And I am looking forward tonight to get into this really needed conversation with this extraordinary guest. But before we do so, I got to ask. Go down in the bottom, click the like button, click subscribe so you don't miss any of these episodes coming up, okay? All right, so we're going to get into it. Tonight, like I said, I have an extraordinary guest, and you are absolutely going to be drawn in by her story. Her name is Tracy Dancy, and she is an electrifying grief motivational speaker that helps women transition from loss to wholeness. Her story is impacting women and helping them to gain strength and to continue life after tragedy. Her words penetrate the heart of listeners and help them to see they too can live again. Tracy is a 2022 100 Women of Color honoree, a 2021-2022 Phenomenal Woman in Business honoree, a 2022 Survivor Award honoree, an Amazon best-selling author, certified motivational fire speaker, certified life coach, and a suicide awareness advocate. She is also the visionary of Soaring on Angels' Wings, Grief Through Our Eyes, a best-selling anthology, and the founder of the Soaring on Angels' Wings grief support community. Tracy uses her testimony, faith, and passion to bring healing, hope, and restoration to others walking through grief. Ooh-wee, that's a whole lot. A lot of accomplishments, but they came out of what I'm hearing is a lot of tragedy. So we want to get into that, Tracy. This season, just like all those that are to come, we will be exploring the journeys of Black women, and I call them Black women in the corner office, right? Women across this country in workplaces, because our journey is different. So welcome. It is so nice to have you today.
Thank you so very much, Dr. Ebony, for having me. It's long overdue, long overdue. We've been trying to have this conversation for quite some time now.
Yes, listen, you guys, Tracy and I, we won't even get into that, but we are not going to let anything stop us. We've had 2 reschedules. We've had some illnesses on both sides. You guys, I had never happened in my life. Eyes literally swollen shut from being outside in my garden. But we refuse to let any of that stop us. And we are here today. I might not have on any eye makeup because of those swollen eyes, but that's okay. We're going to keep on moving, right, Tracy?
That's it. We're going to keep on moving. What that song say, got to keep on moving. They don't like it. But it's ironic that you're wearing pink tonight. And I'm in my green, and those are my brand colors, and those are also my angels' favorite colors. So I
Wow.
know I'm like, what on earth? So this was meant to be. It's definitely meant to be. We're representing baby girl on tonight with her pink and green.
I love that. I love that. Yes. Listen, I think I have 2 pink items in my entire wardrobe. And I don't even know why I chose this one today. So yes, you're right. This was meant to be. And in honor of your angel, I'm glad that we were able to do that.
Thank you.
So let's get started. We definitely want to talk about your angel. So let's get into your story. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your journey career wise, right? Tell our listeners, take us back to high school if you want, or as far back as you want to go, and kind of tell us what your career journey has looked like.
Okay, absolutely. So my career journey, I believe I was 15, back in the day where you had to get working papers to start work.
Yes.
My first job was working in the fitting room at the TJ Maxx.
Okay.
And I was excited, young teenager making her own money. And then from there, I've done Chuck E. Cheese, working the guest counter at the prize station for all the kids that came up. So I would say that I have a very strong background in the customer service field, being a florist, working in the floral department at one of our local grocery stores. From there, I've done telemarketing, again, all customer service. Then it would be hospitality. I worked the front desk of the hotel, became a front desk supervisor. I did some medical billing over the years. I've done legal secretary because I have a strong passion for law, although I did not finish getting my certificate or bachelor's in legal studies because I started a family at a young age, which kind of threw a curveball in my plans. But I wouldn't change it either way because it's a part of my making. And I don't see myself without my 6 children in this world. I'm also a medical administrative assistant. So I'm certified in that. But I currently work in, it's still customer service somewhat, but it's more like social work because I work with families at the job that I'm at now. And so I have a strong passion for hospitality and customer service. And even with my church over the years, I've been on the hospitality committee. So I think that's what He made me to do. He molded me to be in that environment.
Yeah, I was just getting ready to say, you said, you threw a curveball in your plan, but God's plan was different than yours.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
sometimes that is just the case, right?
Yes.
So you've spent a lot of time in a lot of different areas, mostly in customer service. And listen, I've spent a lot of time in customer service. And I
Yes.
know it is not the easiest thing to do. Customer service is quite challenging. Tell me a little bit about, being a Black woman in the customer service field.
Yes.
Were there many of us in those fields? Did you feel like you had a support system? Did you feel alone? How did you feel in those fields, right? Very different companies, maybe that you were working for in job positions, but definitely in customer service and still in a service field.
Yes. I wouldn't feel as if I was indifferent. It was very, what word am I looking for? There was a lot of versatility there, a lot of different backgrounds and ethnicities. So no, it was blended. It was cultural, and that's the good part about it. It wasn't too much of this or too less of that. And the supervisors, I can't really complain. I was blessed to have some very good understanding supervisors. Although you mentioned customer service is a difficult job, it wasn't the workplace, it wasn't the people that I worked with, it wasn't the supervisors. Sometimes it was just that the customers itself that made your job just that much difficult.
Yes, absolutely. Listen, that's a whole nother story. That's a whole nother season of episode. Customer service. Listen,
Yes, especially with that who made up that rule, the customer is always right.
because the customer is not always right. And if you
Exactly.
ever, and I know you have, if you've ever worked with the public in emotionally charged situations, it's one thing to be in retail, maybe customer service is still hard. But you
Yes.
start talking about areas where people are emotionally charged, where it has to
Uh,
do connected to their family or connected to grief or connected to their money. That's a whole different
yes.
ballgame, right? So, been
Absolutely.
there, done that. I know exactly what you're talking about. So, as you're going on this journey, right, you're building a family, you start having children. I know you came up against an obstacle, a huge a turning point in your life. Do you want to share with our audience what that was and what that meant for you in the workplace? Because somebody right now is dealing with exactly what you went through.
Well, so within the workplace, the most difficult challenge I had was the loss of my third child, my daughter Jazz, that I lost at the age of 7 due to a drowning back at my in my hometown, and so that would be the shift for me because it was mind blowing. The hospital where my daughter was taken to, the job that I worked at was directly across the street from it. So
Mm,
I worked at the front desk of the hotel at the time. And my superiors and my colleagues, they were very supportive. And I think I was 28 when I lost Jazz. And this is actually the anniversary month of her passing. I lost her on June 20th. June 20th of 2000. And so the day started kind of strangely that day because it started the night before when she wanted to come home. She was trying to get home to me and I couldn't get to her just that fast. And so I said, okay, I'll see you in the morning. Pops is going to bring you home in the morning. And so she comes home the next morning and she runs through the door and gives me the biggest hug. And she followed me throughout the entire house, watched me put my makeup on and get ready for work, and even wanted to go to work with me. I remember saying to her, now, Jazz, you know you can't come to work with me. I said, I'll see you when I get home. And so she stopped by the job with her big sister and her dad. And, there's vending machines in the lobby. And the last time I physically saw my daughter alive was when she went stumping, had those little temper tantrums because she couldn't get what she wanted out of the vending machine. She didn't want to share. She wanted her own stuff. And so that was the last time I saw her. And her behavior is, I feel like, as if she already knew that something
mm,
was going to happen that day because she never asked to go with me to work. And so she went out with her dad and her siblings, and tragedy struck. I turned my phone off because at that time I was rooted heavily into the ministry. So a sister and I went to visit someone that was homebound, the sick and shut
mhm.
in, had Bible study. I remember after Bible study was over, I turned the phone back on because I wanted to know if their father was going to keep them overnight or if they was going to bring them home. And so I remember my pops at the time, he said, you got to get to the hospital. Jazz is drowning. And I started freaking out. But then I started listening to the messages because back in the day you had those phones, you turn them back on, it's beep, 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 beep,
Yes.
beep, beep. So I knew that there was an abundance of messages waiting for me. And so I'm listening, I hear my cousins leaving me voicemail messages. I was like, okay, I'm gonna call them back later. Went to the next voicemail. It was when I got that message from a nurse
Mm,
at the hospital telling me that there was an accident and I needed to get to the hospital. And so then it led me to believe that there was some truth in the story that my pops had told me. So I panicked. I started screaming. I was like, we got to get to the hospital. We got to get to the hospital. And as we approached the hospital, I had some family members visiting from Carolina, and they were
mhm.
all outside the emergency room waiting for me to walk in. So then I really knew something
Something.
was wrong. And
Wow.
so of course, when I walked through the door, they had this little waiting room where they had the children, because they were all wet. And my younger son, I immediately asked for where he was because at the time he was the youngest and the littlest one because the baby hadn't gone out with them. And
Okay.
so I walked down the hall and I can see her dad holding her, and he apologized. As soon as he saw my face, he apologized to me, and I completely lost it. I remember my pastor and one of my sisters of the church, they were trying to calm me down because they didn't want me to hyperventilate. So they started asking me, how many children do you have? How many fingers am I holding up? I
Mm,
had to get my composure together. I was alert but not alert, and I realized that I had to go in that room. I had to go in that room because that was going to be the last time that I get to hold my baby girl in my arms.
oh my
It-
goodness.
yeah, and somebody as scared as me as of being in front of a deceased person at that time, I didn't have, my nerves shook all the time. I was a big scaredy cat when it came to things to that extent. But that was baby girl. So I had to go in that room. I had no choice. And so as they laid her in my arms, she looked so peaceful, as if she was just sleeping, you know, pretty caramel complexion, that gorgeous hair texture because she was Portuguese and black. So absolutely gorgeous. She was just peaceful. And I
Mm,
held her and I cried and I cried and I prayed and I prayed. At that time, I was asking God, look, I need you to give me a Lazarus moment. Just like you resurrected Lazarus from the dead, I need you to resurrect my daughter. And it's almost like, because she didn't have a look of torment at all, because most drowning victims do. They said, you might not have be able to have an open casket because drown people that drown, their faces are disfigured. No, not hers. So I remember the prophetess that was in the room with us that I was going to church. She said, you know what? It's almost as if God came down, swooped her up in his arms, and she was like, you're the man that we've been serving all this time. And
mm,
she went home with him. And so as it was time to go to the hospital, and the nurses were impatient, they wanted to know if I wanted to be an organ donor. They was kind of pushy and consistent, for me to make that decision. And I'm like, okay, there's no way I'm cutting up my baby girl. I just can't do it. I just can't do it. I couldn't do it. I was already struggling with the fact that she was not here, and I was not letting them do that. And so when it was time to leave the hospital, I felt like it was some type of movie scene. Like we had to split up. We all had to go out different doors because the newspaper reporters were outside all over the hospital, just waiting for us to come out. So I was like, oh my goodness, this can't be real. That's all I said. This just can't be real. So I remember we finally leave the hospital. I go home with my pastor at the time and I stayed with her and her family. The next morning I woke up. I was just hoping it was all a bad dream. I prayed that it was all a bad dream. But the paper, the front page paper,
mm,
read Girl 7 Drowns in Reservoir. Then I knew it was true. I don't know. I feel like my pastor, my faith, they wouldn't let me fall into that state of depression.
mm,
I remember I was going there and I was headed there. I'm used to getting up every day, getting my hair combed, putting on the makeup. And I
mm.
remember my pastor was like, no, no. She said, you're going to go upstairs, you're going to get dressed, and you're going to put your makeup on. As hard as it was, I had to push through. I had someone with me at every beck and call. I was never alone. They were there throughout the whole planning process. My work allowed me to take as much time that I needed away to grieve. But even after that, the home life was different. I was
Absolutely.
like, yeah, because, we talk about mental health and grief ties into your mental well being. And when I lost Jazz, it was like, oh my goodness, I would count the number of days that it was that I last heard her voice.
Yes.
I would count the number of days that it was that I last saw her face. And then as the days went on, I can literally, it was like her voice was just playing in my head. Like it was just playing in my head. She was nowhere in that. It was just playing in my head. And so this table setting, I had 3 boys, 3 girls. There was always one missing person at that seat. When
Mm.
people asked me how many children I had, I would always name them, and I still do till this day, in the order that I had them. And so, I'm sorry.
I said, absolutely.
So eventually, I had to pack up that house. There was
Mm,
too many memories in that house, and I knew in order for me to heal and try to carry on with life, I couldn't stay there. And so, we stayed in the church. My kids were raised up in the ministry. And so every holiday at that point that came, I had to make it extra special, for the children because they were young and I knew that they didn't understand what had transpired. Although they were all traumatized for quite some time, one of my youngest sons waking up with nightmares like he was still coughing up the water. We
mm,
went through a big ordeal, a traumatic. ordeal.
Oh my goodness, Tracy. Listen, those stories are not easy. Stories like yours are not easy to hear, but they are definitely stories that we need to
Hmm.
hear
Absolutely.
because people need to know that they are not alone. None of us know how many days we have here on this earth, right? We don't know
Right.
what will happen. Um, and so we have to know. I can't even imagine, but there's somebody out there in your shoes wondering, how am I going to get through this? And they need to know how you got through it. They're
Right.
listening to understand that they are not alone and that they absolutely can get through it. So I want to ask
Absolutely.
you, I know you said, home was just never the same. And you're right, right? It can't be the same. How did that impact your work life? And then what happened after the incident and you returned to work?
When I returned to work, I ended up leaving the hotel job, and I started working at the hospital, doing medical billing at that time. There was just too many memories there for me. There was a lot of connections there, and so I needed a fresh start. I really didn't, I wasn't stuck in my grief at that time. My daughter was 7 years old. Um, like I said, I feel as if God, I know that God orchestrated all this because the whole thing, the way it transpired, a month prior to that, he made sure she was filled. He made sure he needed to do the work he needed to do within me. And I didn't, she was 7. And so I knew that's God's perfect number. I
Mm,
knew that he was in the midst of it. And after her passing, he made sure that I knew that she was at peace and safe in his arms, and so I didn't really stay stuck. I went right back to work,
okay,
because at that time, going back to work was a way to keep my mind occupied.
sure.
And I still had 5 other children that I had to take care of
Yes.
as a single mom at that time. So I had to go back to work. I didn't have a choice in the matter, but because my faith was as strong as it was, I was able to move forward. But that one had been that was not my that was my first loss, but not my only loss.
Right.
Because 17 years later, in 2017, death came knocking at my door again when I lost my 19-year-old daughter, who I found because of, um, she decided, she lost hope. She lost
Mm,
hope and she took matters into her own hands, and I had to be the one to find her. And so that time around, grief was very different for me.
yes, I can only imagine. Were you still at the hospital, working at the hospital at that time?
No. At that time, I had relocated. We moved to a different city within the same state.
Mhm.
At that time, I was working for the electric company, where I had worked for the past 11 years. Um, in their call center. And I remember my daughter being in distress. She wasn't in distress the whole entire day because the night before we had an amazing day. I can remember it was a Sunday. She went out, she went to pick up her check, she went out to eat, then she went grocery shopping. Then she came home and cooked the Sunday dinner. But before she came home, she stopped at the store to buy me and her some matching outfits. And
Mm,
I still have that sweatsuit till this day hanging in my closet, and it says slay all day because she was my pageant diva, my cosmetologist, my everything, hairstylist, everything. She was into modeling. She was my baby girl, my mini me. And so she
mhm,
bought us those outfits, which I still have to this day. Came home, cooked us a nice Sunday dinner. I remember her saying, I'm going to leave some of this hamburger out, Mom, because she loves to eat and she loves to cook. I'm going to make some empanadas on tomorrow. We're going to have empanadas for dinner on Monday. So Monday, the day went by as any typical day. She was in good spirits. We talked. She was a bit upset. And I remember our conversation early in the morning when she woke me up. And we were talking about how men, some men, not all men, but how some men gossip like women. And so that was the conversation that I was having with my 19-year-old in the wee hours of the morning. And so I got up to prepare myself for work. She got up and she had some errands to run. And I remember saying, make sure you let me know when you get home. But I had already knew she was home because the Uber driver notified me that she was already home. So I was
Right.
like, didn't I tell you to let me know you was home? She's like, I'm home, Mom. Laugh out loud. And so she was doing fine. And then she got this disturbing telephone call. And there was two people on the line. And she said, Mom, why are they three-way calling me? And I can remember leaving my desk, going into the hall and calling her significant other at the time. And I was like, listen, why are y'all three-way calling her? He was like, I didn't call her. She was already on the line when I picked up the phone. And so, whatever the conversation was, and I remember saying to her, I said, you don't have to talk to them. You don't have to talk to them at all. I remember telling her, you don't have to have those conversations. And I told that individual, listen, if you want to talk to her, you can wait until I get home and we can have this conversation together. And so I remember my daughter's last words to me was, I'm just going to kill myself.
Mm,
And I said to her, I'm texting. Now I'm real frantic trying to calm her down while I'm sitting at this desk at my job. And she was like, I'm done. I'm
mm,
done. And when she stopped responding, I was like, I got to get home. I told my supervisor, I got to go. And at that time, I think they were concerned about how I was going to account for my time. I said, I don't care how you time it. Whatever you want to do, do it. I got an emergency and I need to go home. And so I remember stopping on the way home to pick her up something to eat because she was expecting at the time. I got home, I didn't see her downstairs, went up to my room. I didn't see her anywhere. Her jacket and her purse was laying in my bed. So I figured she just went to take a walk to clear her head.
mhm,
Some moments went by. When I couldn't reach her, I reached contacted her big sister. I asked her to give her a call. She couldn't reach her. So I dozed off for maybe 15, 20 minutes or so, got back up. Still no one heard from her. Went downstairs to get ready to do some laundry. And then my whole heart
mhm.
shook because I had to be the one to find her.
Listen, I am so incredibly sorry. I want to take this moment right now just to breathe for a moment, um, and to let our audience know that you are not alone. We will make sure that there are resources if you find yourself in a space where you need help, you need support. We will make sure that there are resources that will roll across the screen when this episode airs so that you can get the help you need. But I just really, I want to, I don't want to ask too many questions, but if it is okay, I just want to take the liberty of making some statements.
Sure.
Um, First and foremost, I just want people to know that you don't know what someone may be going through. You don't know how someone may be taking what you're saying. So please, by all means, be kind. You don't know how it is impacting people. We don't know what mental health struggles people may have and how things may trigger them.
Yes.
Um, and then I would like to say to all of the employers out there, when someone says that they have a family emergency, please be concerned about the human being first, not the hours,
Absolutely.
not
Yes.
how they're going to be made up, none of that. Yes, businesses have to run, but people need to tend to their families first.
Yes.
Um, so, again, Tracy, I just want to say that I am terribly sorry that you had to go through that loss and a previous loss of your children. I can't imagine what that must be like. But what I do know is that you have turned these losses with the help of God
Yeah.
into a passion to help others live through the grief.
Yes.
So, can you tell us a little bit about the moment that you decided, um, I'm going to take this and I'm going to turn it into help for others? I'm going to take my experiences, my tragedies, my angels, and what my angels went through, and I'm going to turn it into a positive experience for others.
It wasn't a right away thing because I had to get to that point where, losing her was different from the first loss. And so it put me in I was in depression at that time. I
Mm,
was heavily depressed. I wasn't eating, I was losing weight. I had the bad panic attacks, suffering from that post traumatic stress disorder. And so I isolated myself. Her passing instilled like a fear within me where I was afraid to leave the house because the outside world was a reminder that she was no longer here. Um, and so I didn't sleep at night.
mm.
I stayed awake. I didn't go to sleep until the sun came out. And when I finally started going to sleep, I started going to sleep watching Martin so I can laugh myself to sleep because laughter is therapeutic and it was a part of my healing journey. But it came to the point where I was like, listen, grief will have you looking real ugly.
Mm.
And so when I looked in the mirror every day, I didn't recognize that person,
Yes,
you
because
know,
grief is ugly itself.
right?
Yeah.
Yes. And my face was just long. I lost all that weight. And I was like, okay, I cannot die in my grief. I just can't do it. And so I sought counseling therapy. I started going to therapy 3 days out of a week because I had so many feelings and I needed to be able to put those feelings in their prospective places. I needed to know that it was okay to feel the way I was feeling. I needed to know that it was okay to be angry. And so after going through the therapy process, I was like, okay, I got to get back to work. I got to get back into the working world. And so because I was out of work for so long and my mind took such a blow from losing my daughter, I was like, okay, let me enroll myself back into school so I can get back into the hospitality field. So, I got my credentials with the hospitality and tourism. So I got my credentials for that, but then it still wasn't enough. So that's when I decided to go back to school again while seeking employment. And so I trained for a full-time job and went back to school at night to become a medical administrative assistant. And so I'm like, okay, now that I'm getting reacquainted and starting a new chapter without yet another one of my daughters in my physical world. I have to do something. And I started having these conversations with God. And I'm like, listen, I feel lonely. I still feel lonely. Now that I'm back in the working field, I still feel lonely and heavy. And I felt like in the beginning of your grief stages, everybody is there.
Yes.
People stop by, you get random pop ups, they'll call your phone. All that stopped. And I
Yes.
felt alone. So then God started putting all these different women in my path because I was like, I really need a community of women, of people that's going to understand what I've been through and why I feel the way I'm feeling. And so I was like, okay, I'm gonna live through this. I'm gonna live through this. And I remember quoting that scripture, I will not die, but declare the works of the Lord. And although I was angry at God for so long, I started seeing his hand in this healing journey
Mm.
because yet he kept my mind
Yes.
yet another time. And I was like, God, I was angry. And I tell people all the time when I speak, I was very angry at God. That faith was
Mhm.
put up on the shelf because I couldn't understand why he would let me go through this a second time. And so that footprints poem,
Yes.
there
Oh
was
my
only,
goodness.
I have a newfound appreciation for that poem because I saw me in that poem and I saw why there was only one set of footprints because he literally carried me throughout this entire grieving process.
While you
And
were
so,
talking, and so when you were saying, I put my grief on a shelf, that poem literally came to me. I was thinking of it as you were telling the story, right? I think
yes,
so many times we don't recognize, maybe is the word, we don't recognize that we do get angry with God.
yes, we do.
That doesn't, it doesn't mean he leaves us.
No, he's
We get
always
angry
there.
with people that we love and they don't leave us. So there's no way God is leaving us.
Yes, and I am so grateful that he doesn't leave. I'm
Yeah.
so grateful that he doesn't pack up and walk out of our lives, no matter how we may feel about him at times. And I was angry and I questioned him. And, people say it's not good to question God. And I tell them all the time, I beg to differ, because if you don't question him, how are you going to get your answers? So just like I'm having this conversation with you is the same way I conversate with him, you know?
Absolutely.
So it's like, I need
Absolutely.
to know. And so he began, that's when he started really doing the inner healing, started
Okay.
healing me inwardly, and it started showing outwardly. And so he allowed me to meet a lot of women that was going through the same thing I was going through. And I remember one particular lady that I met, and she was telling me about the loss of her daughter and sharing. I said, what little does she know? She's telling my story. And so
Mm,
this will go on and on and on. And I'm like, okay, God, I hear you tugging on my heartstrings.
yes.
If you want me to create this grief support group, my own community that I've been asking for, then I'm going to need you to give me a name for this group. And so I remember doing my research because I didn't want to choose a name that somebody else had and
Yes.
compromise something that God was calling me to do. And so I remember that next morning, I tossed and turned the whole night. I got up the next morning, brushing my teeth, and I started singing this song, On the Wings of Love. I'm like, what? Like, that song is super old. And so it
You're like,
said,
where did that
oh,
come from?
yeah, exactly. And then I heard it again, On the Wings of Love. Okay, I said, I hear you, God. I hear you. I said, he told me right then and there, you are soaring on your soaring on angels' wings. I looked to my right, I looked to my left. I have these memorial tats of both of my angels. I said, okay, God,
Mm,
I'm soaring on my angels' wings. I did the research. No one had that name. And I knew no one was going to have it because God gave it to me. He
absolutely.
gave it to me clearly. He spoke to me. And
Yes.
sometimes he'll speak to you in ways that you're not expecting him to speak to you.
Yes, he will.
And he always seems to give me a message in the music. That's why I'm very
Mhm.
careful on what I listen to, because
Yes.
God speaks to me through
Yes.
music. And
Yes.
so when I trademark that name, it's a trademark. Soaring on Angel Wings belongs to me. And
Good.
so we started the grief support group, and it started on Facebook, where I would bring other mothers onto the platform to give them a safe space where they felt free to share their stories and their journey, knowing that I was someone that's walking the same in their shoes.
Yes.
Even though we may have lost our children differently, we're all connected because we can all resonate with the pain that child loss brings.
Yes.
And so we birthed Soaring on Angels' Wings. And from that, we went speaking on different platforms, sharing my story, because the ultimate desire is to be that beacon of hope for others, just to
Yes.
let them know that you don't have to grieve alone. There are people out there that are willing to lend that listening ear, there to give you the shoulder to cry on, to uplift you, that understands your level of pain, so we can grieve on our pace and on our terms. And so after that became the book project.
Yes.
We started with the book project, Soaring on Angels' Wings, Grief Through Our Eyes. And so I recruited for that book project. And I remember telling God, I'm like, there was a lot of women that signed up for the project. And then there was a lot that backed out. And at that time, because I feel as if they weren't ready, because in order to be a part of that project, you had to peel back those layers. You had to put yourself back
And
into that moment in life. And I think some of us suppress the pain, or
oh,
the
for sure.
the or the thought or the memory of the losing our children. And I tell people all the time, for me, it was like, okay, if I choose not to heal, and if I choose not to talk about my angels, it's like suppressing their memories. It's
Yes, there's
important.
a difference between healing and burying.
Yes. And
Yes,
that's what happens. And I feel like people, they don't understand that that's exactly what they're doing. They're burying
yes,
the memory of the loss that they experience. They can't heal if they're not willing to deal with what happened. And so that book project was the start of a healing journey for some of the women that's on the project. They started their healing journey through this book project.
mhm,
And then for some, it was a continuance. For me, it's a continuance.
yes,
And I tell people all the time, I talk about my daughters all the time. I incorporate them in everything that I do.
yes,
My brand colors, the green and the pink is Shania's favorite colors. Pink and purple is Jazz's favorite colors. And so you will often see me in those colors because that's their colors. And that's one of my ways of honoring them and memorializing them, as well as that book project. And so we're going to continue to spread the message of hope and healing, um, because you can live through grief. You don't have to stay stuck there.
yes, yes. Thank you for being so transparent, and just sharing the story, just saying
Yes.
the things out loud that someone needs to hear. How many women, before I ask the next question, how
Mhm.
many women are in the anthology? How many stories are told there?
It's three. It's myself and three other co-authors on the book
Okay.
project. And we have Darlene, who lost a daughter. We have Joy, who's lost a daughter. And
Okay.
then you have Crystal, who has lost two sons.
Hmm.
And
We
so,
will make sure to put the link down below. So make sure you go and grab a copy of the anthology.
yes. And this book project is dedicated to my grandmother, because during the process of writing this book, my grandmother was diagnosed with cancer. And
Hmm.
so she was in her 80s. And we knew she didn't have a lot of time left. And so that implemented a different type of grief.
Yes.
We talk about that anticipatory grief,
Yes.
because with that, you begin to start grieving them before they already leave.
Yes.
And so when I found out about her, it was like, okay, it kind of like thrusted me back into my childhood, my youth. It gave me like I went back in time, like, oh my gosh, Grams have been here my whole entire life. Weekends at Graham's house, going with Grams to work, being raised up in the ministry. My grandparents brought me to church, singing in the church choir.
Mhm.
I'm like, oh my goodness, like I want to give that same legacy, bringing my grandchildren up into the ministry. And
Yeah.
although Grams was diagnosed with cancer, and she had some good days and some bad days, God kept her mind. She was
Yes.
still in her right mind, still sassy and still in her right mind. And so the book project was dedicated to her, because I had never experienced that type of grief before. And some people say it's better knowing. And again, I beg to differ. It's worse knowing, because it puts you there before you get there.
Yeah. One thing's for sure,
Mhm.
grief will hit all of our lives in
Yes.
one way or another. And we have got to make our way through it. Everybody's journey through grief is going to be different,
Yes,
but it is going to hit every single one of us at some
it
point.
is. It is.
Um, as you think about moving forward, tell us what else Soaring on Angels Wings has coming up, or what you have coming up, what we can look forward to seeing from you.
Okay. So on our Angel's Wings, Grief Through Our Eyes, the first book project has not ceased. Um, we're going places. I'm going places speaking. The book is a bestseller. It was a bestseller in three divisions on Amazon.
Nice.
Death and Grief. It was a number one seller in personal testimonies and a number one seller in short reads. And so the reviews have been amazing because God told me the project was going to be small, but it was going to be impactful. And so I'm grateful for this first book project. We are working on the Soaring on Angel's Wing sibling edition. We're going to bring the siblings on board because I realized throughout this grieving journey that the siblings grieve different than
Yes.
the parents. They have a different bond with their siblings, and some of them are so used to being strong for the parents that they don't deal with their own grief. So
Mhm.
it's important for me to allow them that opportunity, give them that space so they can also start their healing journey and be a beacon of hope and memorialize their siblings as well. Um,
Absolutely
so
beautiful.
that's what Soaring on Angel's Wings got. It even landed us, what, two radio interviews?
Okay.
Two radio interviews, and I made an appearance on WTNH Woman to Woman segment, Channel 8 News, to promote the book project as well. So God is doing some amazing things, and every time I go somewhere to speak, that book is with me. I'm actually going to be speaking somewhere else. So I vend these books all the time, and I gift them sometimes, especially when I come across parents that are in the beginning stages of their grief.
Yes. Yes. As an author myself who wrote a book out of nowhere near a tragedy like what you experienced, but just wrote the book through from a healing perspective.
Yes,
Sometimes you see people and yep, this is one of the people that God had me write the book for. And you just read
absolutely.
it to them, right? I can't tell you how many times I have been somewhere and I'm like, yep, sis is going exactly through what I went through, and she needs to
Yes.
pause. She needs to understand what that pause means, and that it is okay that you find power in that pause. So I truly understand. You know, sometimes it's gifted, but it is because there is a bigger purpose
Yes.
behind the book. It wasn't. It's not just, hey, I want to write a book. It was,
Right.
I've always wanted to do, and I still want to. I have some book projects, but it is when God says, hey, this it's time for this to get out.
Yes,
You do it,
absolutely.
you know.
I mean,
Um,
I can't say that it was easy. I mean, it was one of the most hardest things I had to do. We cried and paused. We had some moments where we had to pause. And so I love that you said there's power in that pause because we actually had to pause,
yeah,
release,
yeah,
reset, and then
yeah,
get back to it.
yes. Tracy, I remember writing the book. The book was edited. The book was the cover art for the book was done. Everything was done, and I said, I'm so busy that that's what caused me to pause. And if somebody is in the shoes that I am in, they're probably listening to books because they don't have time to read them. So I want to
Right.
do an audiobook. And I did
Yes.
the audiobook. I read it myself, but you know what that did? I had to go through it again, right? I had to go through all of those moments again, all of those moments in my life. And so it's okay to pause. It's okay to stop.
Yes.
Don't keep
Yes.
reading. It's okay. Um,
Absolutely.
and I remember the audio engineer saying, okay, that's it for today. And I'm like, no, we're going to push through. And she's like, no, we're not.
Yes.
We're not. So let me ask you this.
Yes.
If someone is watching and they're like, man, I am living that story one way or another, what advice do you have for them?
I would say to grieve out loud.
Mm,
To grieve out loud because grieving out loud allows others to show you that compassion that you need so you don't feel alone. And for me, that's exactly how I felt. Because I stayed isolated. I stayed to myself because I felt like there was no one that understood my pain. And so just be gracious with yourself. That same type of grace or that same kind of grace that we give to others, we need to extend it to ourselves. And you don't have to rush through the grieving process. Take your time. If you get up tomorrow and all you did was brush your teeth, you done enough.
yes, you've done enough. I love that. I love that. Well, again, Tracy, it is crazy. I happened to glance down at the clock, and I'm like, we've been talking for almost an hour, but the story is so important, right? Your
Yes.
story is so important. Making sure that the story of your angels is told, making sure your story of being the mother to those angels and what that looks like. Your story of helping others through what you may have been through is so important. And so if we talk for 2 hours, it's fine with me, right? But I do have, I guess, one final question. I asked you, what's coming up next and all of those things. Kind of a fun thing I like to ask everyone before the end of the show. And I would be very interested to hear your answer. And that is, if someone made a movie of your life, what would it be called? And do you know who would play you?
Absolutely, because the movie would be titled after my solo book project that I'm working on called Held by Grace.
Held by Grace. Yes. And do you know who would play you?
And I was kind of tossed with two phenomenal actresses. It would be either Tika Sumpter
Hmm. Yeah.
or Yaya DaCosta.
Yaya DaCosta. Nice. I love that. I love that. Yes.
Yes.
Well, Tracy, listen, it's been amazing. This story has to be told. I am so thankful for you choosing to come on the Black Woman in the Corner office and
Yes.
telling your story about your journey. Because as we go through these workplaces all of the time, life is happening outside. And
Absolutely.
sometimes it ain't pretty. There are things happening to us that impact our ability to move in these places. And
Yes.
you being so transparent and pulling back the layers and allowing us in, I am just thankful for that.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. That's what it's all about. Our stories are not ours alone. They are blueprint for others. They are
Yeah.
a testimony, and the only way we can overcome is by sharing them.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Well, listen, thank you for being here. For those of you who have enjoyed Tracy's story, please grab her book. The links are down below. Please make sure if you know somebody who needs resources that you click any of the resources below. I'm a big advocate for therapy, and so there will be some hotline numbers down below that you can utilize to find a therapist or to get to support groups like Tracy's if you are in this situation. And thank you all so much for joining us on this edition of the Black Woman in the Corner office.
Thank you so
Don't
much for having me.
Absolutely. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And until next time, you guys know what to do. Keep spreading that Black girl magic on everything you do.
Bye.
Bye.